what's going on with Valorant in the women's circuit over there. Like, this is a conversation a year ago, a year and a half ago, that would be completely different if we didn't have all these organizations signing women and caring for women and not using women as necessarily always tokenizing them.
Hello and welcome to the Move Makers podcast. I'm your host, Audrey Adair, and in this podcast, it's all about the incredible women trailblazing the video game industry and covering the unique moves they've made throughout their careers to get to where they are today. My very first move maker is a 5-time winning Counter-Strike world champion, a Forbes 30 Under 30 recipient, winner of a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Esports Awards, and most recently a Tempest Award Hall of Fame recipient. Wow. Stephanie Harvey, popularly known as Miss Harvey, is now the Director of Development for CLG, leading the company's inclusion efforts, all while managing a demanding content creator and hosting schedule. She also has her own cyber citizenship company, which we dive into throughout this podcast. And I get really excited about conversations like the one that you're about to listen to with Stephanie, because she is an amazing role model and a natural leader with an unmatched energy and passion for doing good and making an impact on the future of the esports industry. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. Stephanie Harvey. Thanks so much for joining the podcast. I'm so excited for the opportunity to chat with you today. How are you feeling?
I'm great. Super excited to be here. I think we maybe have the same microphone, so I feel like we're in the same studio, you know.
We're in different parts of the world, but connected through our microphones. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, why don't you kick us off by introducing yourself to everyone?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Stephanie Harvey. I'm known in the gaming world as Miss Harvey, French Canadian, in my mid 30s. I say that because I'm from the gaming world, especially the esports world. And in the esports world, mid 30s is really old. So I started video games, when I was a really kid. But pretty much I have been competing on the circuit for a long time. I've been in esports for 18 years, from professional player to making games to now helping to run an organization owned by the Madison Square Garden called CLG, and overall just doing a lot of things.
You do a lot. I had no idea. I knew you've been in for over a decade, but 18 years you've been competing. Yes? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I started competing in 03 in a game called Counter-Strike, and I would say I haven't really competed in the pandemic. That's kind of like post-retirement now. I don't know.
That's funny because I'm also in my mid-30s. So it's just
we're old.
We're old. There are things that I say now where I'm like, is that a boomer thing? Am I a boomer?
Yeah.
Like, am I aging myself too much? I'm very aware, and I spend way too much time on TikTok, and now I get served like Gen Z versus millennial like videos, and I'm like, wait, millennials used to be like the it generation, and now we're old. Like, what happened? That happened.
You know so how fast. I know I'm old? When people say, am I a boomer or I'm a boomer, I think it's ageism. So I'm such a boomer. I'm still a teenager at heart, I think. I'm definitely not the most responsible human sometimes. Okay, so what conventional mainstream people think is responsible is probably not me. I think I'm responsible, and I'm balanced in my own ways. And that's what I learned throughout my life, is that there's no mold. Yeah. Society puts us in a mold, but you're meant to break it and find what works for you. And I'm definitely not somebody that has a regular routine and a regular mental age, and I'm okay with it.
No, I love it. I mean, for someone who describes himself as not the most responsible, you have a lot of really incredible accomplishments under your belt. So I'd say continue setting your own mold and demonstrating the success that can come from being irresponsible. I love that. On this show, I really want to give you the platform to talk about your story straight from you, and really be able to share what it is that you feel like really makes your career. So what to you was kind of that first move into esports, into being a pro player? Was it something that you would kind of set out to do, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah. So it's I mean, it definitely just happened because when I was a teenager, there's absolutely like it wasn't even a thing to say I want to work in video games, let alone say I want to be a professional gamer. That was not even conceivable.
Mhm.
There were some like reports and news reports from Korea where, oh my God, it's a thing over there. And they were anything about it in some of the movies, but that was just like really obscure, really weird.
Mm.
Um, and no one in their right mind had that as a goal, as a dream. Um, if you ask like the little girls and boys then, like, what's your dream when you get older? It was definitely like very basic things, like, well, not basic, obviously being a doctor is not basic, but when I like traditional
Yeah.
jobs, I would say. Now that has been challenged, right? You can see little kids see, I want to be a YouTube content creator or whatever.
Mhm.
And that wasn't like anything that was possible then. You couldn't create your own job. You couldn't create your own market. You couldn't Business ventures are really risky, and people just told you to stay at one place for your whole life and build up your retirement plan and then cash
Mhm.
out, right? So that was kind of the way that I was raised in, and probably you at the same
Mhm.
age. And so I never thought about being a professional gamer, but I did start gaming when I was really young. And it was like, for me, my parents treated it like music, like art, like
Mm.
sports. It was just another activity. And it probably helped because it was never treated as a negative thing
Yeah.
in my household. Gaming was actually positive. Like, my parents encouraged me gaming. Hey, we don't want to play board games tonight. You can go in the basement and play some games. And I was like, yeah, like it was a positive thing.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until I was a teenager though that it became more serious, that I saw that I could compete
Mhm.
in video games, even if it was just for fun. Like, think about it, your local, I would say, something that could be really similar. Like, let's say if you play pool,
Mhm.
like, your local pool tournament, you're like, oh yeah, you compete versus other pool clubs and whatnot, but it's still very local and very not niche, but it's not like, you don't think, oh, I'm going to be a professional
Right.
pool player because I won the tournament in my city, right?
Mhm.
So it kind of was like that until you saw that there was an international tournament and that you could potentially get there.
Mhm.
And then you're like, oh damn, okay, if I won the local tournament, or if I'm getting better at the local tournament, why don't I give it a shot at, like, the Toronto tournament or the New York tournament? And it kind of became something that you would do on the side after work. You would practice your friends and,
Mhm.
and try to compete and whatnot. And you would meet on weekends with these people in real life. And you would go to the movies and whatnot. And then you would, after the movies, you'd go home and play it with them online, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
or spend an all nighter at a local land center until like 7 a.m. and just play games all morning. So it really was just an activity,
Mhm.
definitely not thinking about doing that as a job, like, not even close.
Which I think is incredible because I just love those stories where it's like, this is my passion. This is something that we celebrated at home. And I was able to find a local community and be supported, too. Because there was something, I've had a conversation recently where, it was never negative in my household, but it was more of like, okay, you've played for 5 hours, now go outside. Like, that was kind of the thing where it's like, just I think that was the thinking around it, was like, it's too much time in front of a screen. Whereas now I think, especially as millennials become parents, millennials are like quintessential gamers, right? So like, we're going to be playing with our kids, and there's going to be kind of that camaraderie that you experience, but that was pretty rare for that time. So my parents didn't play with me. They liked to watch me play, and they liked that I was home playing games, and it gave me something to do. But there was still that kind of like, okay, like, there was always like a limit, I guess, to the play. And now I think it's definitely evolved, and the thinking around it has evolved too.
Yeah, I think it was a perfect storm for me because my parents, I love gaming, like, just overall, like, board games, sports. Like, I was someone that loved interactivity,
Mm-hmm.
and my parents, it's just in their culture, at after like 6, 7 p.m. they zone out. They like sit in front of the TV, and my mom would do like laundry or whatever, and my dad would like relax, and there's no more gaming or no more playing. And then they hated me having friends over, and they wanted me home. So I was kind of stuck where I'm home, I can't play. I'm not watching their TV shows because I'm way too young, and I don't have a siblings. So I'm kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? I was just straight A students and stuff, and I'm stuck at home after 8 p.m. Or 7 p.m. every day. And then my parents were like, well, just go play video games. And I was like, okay, so it was my way of having interactivity without and continuing to be challenged, and because that's what I love, being challenged, competing and whatnot. But even with really basic games, like even if it was Tetris, I would like compete versus myself, or pinball, like try to beat my own scores, or by the time I would do things. And I just became very competitive with myself, because that's the only person I was hanging out with, I guess.
I can very much relate to that. But it's funny, I had a Sega Genesis. That was like the game that, like, the console I had, and my grandmother gave it to me, which I always think is like hilarious.
Really
My grandmother
random.
gave it to me, and she would always give me the Disney games that came out, and which are always like self-play.
Lion King.
Lion King, that's a hard game. That's a fun game, but that, like, I only made it past the Stampede level like 3 times.
Yeah, I think that I've never made it through that, and I think I've played this game like, I don't know, 100 hours. Like I was a kid and just played it so much.
Yes.
That was so cool.
I remember being really proud of myself. The only game that I ever was able to like beat and play to completion was Beauty and the Beast. And you're literally
I never played that one.
really, it's not a challenging game, but you're like collecting books and roses throughout like the entire story. It's really at that time it was very fun for me. I really enjoyed it. But I played all the Disney games, and
Aladdin, Jungle Book.
yes, they were all so fun. I love that. But that was the console I had, so it was always Sega and Disney, and also. But anyway, going back to kind of starting your career in esports and starting competitive play, what was like, did you have a breakout move or like something that really solidified you as like a pro player? Were you able to say like, this is what I'm doing, this is the path that I want to pursue?
No, because it was always very blurry, right? It's not like it's not like at 2010 you all of a sudden I got offered $1 million and I quit my job and it was clear. It never really happened like that. It was so progressive, from like having my first contract, meaning I literally meant that I just had a team name in front of my name and I competed, to having my first sponsor, like headset sponsor, or my first travel paid, or my first salary, which was $100 per month, like,
wow,
like progressing throughout that lasted like 10 years.
Wow.
And then we're in 2013 and I'm still not really paid much a month. I already have 5 World at the time I had like 4 World Cups championship wins, and I'm working, and I have a successful video game designer career, and Twitch comes out, or it didn't come out in 2013, but Twitch really exploded, I feel, around that time. And that's when I became made more and more money out of competition. So still then I made more money streaming and doing content creation than competing.
Wow.
So I at some point I was like, yeah, I'm a professional gamer, but I'm not paid to be a professional gamer. And I spent 40, 60 hours a week for the last 10 to 15 years of my career, not paid, just to have a gold medal around my neck once a year. And so, yeah, I was a professional, but it was as professional as you could be. And then it hit like very recently. I think I would say like 4 or 5 years ago. That's when I was able to make enough money from just like the salary, the pro gaming salary, to do to stop. Not from content creation, not from, sponsorship deals and whatnot, just like as a salary of a pro gamer. It was very recently. And so I could have quit my job way earlier just from sponsorship money or content creation. But I'm, like I said, I'm someone that needs to be challenged and needs to fulfill a lot of things. And sometimes just doing content creation, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for then. I might have done things differently now that I look back, but then I really wanted to stay where I was. And so it took me a bit to make the full leap of faith to say, hey, I'm now fully doing that. And it was after a lot of people were already being paid to do that full time.
Move Makers is made possible by Paidia Gaming. Paidia empowers women and allies of all genders to safely connect, learn, and play. When you join Paidia, you're unlocking access to an inclusive and kind gaming community, tournaments from your favorite content creators and competitors, along with exclusive content aimed at taking your gaming skills to the next level. Make sure you head over to paidiagaming.com today to sign up and follow along on social media at Paidia Gaming. You've also added your role at CLG as their director of development. Can you share more about that and what that role entails?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a very interesting role because it was kind of created with the collaboration of CLG and Madison Square Garden, where when I was a player, we sold our team, UB United, to CLG back in 2015, and I became just a player before I was running the whole thing, and I had a vision and ideas. And when I became just a player, I had expectation of what I wanted an organization to be. And although I thought CLG was doing great things when it comes to like being an esports team, it my vision still hadn't been executed to what I think we should hold a professional team standard to, and what we should do to the community, and how everyone has a responsibility, a social responsibility to do more than just create content, to do more than just pay players to play and make money. Personally, that's not something that's really appealing to me. I've never put money first in any of the things I work for. It's always been actually like third, fourth, fifth, which is, my agent would say, is not the greatest plan, but that's why he's my agent now, and he handles that. But for me, it's always been about making a difference, pushing things, and elevating the community. Anyway, so at some point when I decided to kind of retire or stop competing, and when they wanted to swap players and I was kind of benched for a little bit, they came back to me and they wanted to build on that vision and just put me in charge of it, which I thought it was an amazing opportunity, because too often you have people in power that don't have a vision, or you have people that have vision and don't have the power. And I felt that it was the right time for me to be there, where I had the power and I had the vision. So it was a perfect match. So I really wanted to focus on that. So that was 2 years ago. And like everything, it's being built one step at a time, one little brick at the time. But I do believe that in 2 years, we completely changed the culture within the company, from, what I described, what an esports team was, to really nourishing and caring about each other and about the community and about diversity, inclusivity, equity, about how we can make a difference and have an impact on everyone's life around us, everybody that we touch, whether it's a fan, whether it's a player, whether it's a staff, and how we can accomplish something greater than just being a team that they like to watch. And like I said, it's one brick at a time, and I do believe that it starts from within. So a lot of the work that I've done is behind the scene, building that this infrastructure and educating our staff and players to hold ourselves to higher standards, to want to do charity for the right things, not just because it's cool, to continue being the front leader of diversity and inclusivity. We were one of the first one to have a women's team. That's the reason why I was at CLG in the first place. But now a lot of teams have women teams. So what makes us different? Why are we still one of the leader? What's the next step when it comes to that? Also, everything that has to do with philanthropy, our allies. We work with a lot of teams. So from the NAMI, National Association of Mental Health Institute, or the You Can Play, which creates a safer space in sports for LGBTQ plus representation amongst them in sports, or name it. Like, we have tons and tons of different partners. And I want to make a difference, from our collegiate efforts to our junior efforts to high schools and primary schools initiatives. So pretty much I'm in a little bit of in a lot of boats. And you know, I was kind of head spearing that by myself, and now one by one, you know, CLG's culture and values is evolving, and now it's just not me. I feel that it's really we're all in the boat and we're all moving in the same direction. So hopefully within the next couple of months, last year, we're gonna start kind of pushing that outward, not just inward. We're trying to. We started a lot of initiatives outward, but it's still maybe not feel as cohesive for the rest of the world. But let me tell you, internally, those are discussions we're having on a daily basis, and I'm here to remind everyone all the time.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm like applauding you inside because that's so much to accomplish with a new role within an organization that's, you know, been around and has set ways, you know, to come
Yeah.
through and like 2 years is not a lot of time, especially considering that 2020 is just, we don't even need to talk about 2020, right? But
It was
you know, it's a
difficult.
challenge, and it's so I think it's definitely. I'm excited to see what, you know, hearing your enthusiasm and your passion, and knowing that you are holding yourself and your team to a higher standard and like wanting to do more than you've already done is really exciting. But you have already done quite a lot, so
Yeah.
that's pretty
I mean,
great.
it can be confusing for people too, right? Um, because it you want to make it genuine, and you feel like you're not doing any progress when you're in it. And then you look back a year earlier and you're like, oh, we're in a different place. Like this would have never happened a year ago. But you don't realize that because it's really a grind, but not in that grind as in like you got to do so much. More like in it has to sink. You have to hear things over and over to start to understand and how to want to make changes. And it was met with a lot of adversity at first. And there was decision with my boss that he's now VP at Madison Square Garden. He got promoted recently. There was a decision where he had to take a decision at some point. I was like, are you in? Is the company in, or are we out? Because it feels like I'm fighting by myself. And he told me, you're doing exactly what I want us to do. You are in the right path, and everybody else that's not following you is in the wrong. So keep running. And I remember specifically that meeting. If I didn't have a leader that thought that way, I wouldn't be here talking about with you about it. Because, like you said, changing a culture's company, honestly, it needs to come from both the top and the bottom. And if they're not aligned, it just doesn't work.
100%. I think a lot of organizations probably had similar conversations, you know, especially over the last couple of years. And I am glad that those conversations are being had. They are long overdue. And it is finally at a point where like people at the top cannot sit idly by. They cannot continue to ignore these conversations because these issues are incredibly important. And I think that it will make such a huge impact for the future of our industry, multiple industries. But, you know, speaking about esports and gaming, like I get really excited, like in all the conversations I have with people like you and internally it's companies and really kind of having conversations with friends, knowing what's happening internally, because there's a lot of re-education happening. And that's something that's going to take a couple of years. It might take a lifetime, but I do think that 10 years from now, we're going to like look back at this conversation and be like, can you believe that was even something we had to advocate for? You know,
Well, I mean,
you know?
even like 2 years ago, it's a different space, right? What's going on with Valorant in the women's circuit over there, like this is a conversation a year and a half ago that would be completely different if we didn't have all these organizations signing women and caring for women and not using women as necessarily always tokenizing them and like, oh, we have a woman, she's like our women. So anything that has to do with women sponsors or having a token woman in all of our posters, she needs to be here, you know. So it feels a little more genuine for everyone. But I think you hit on something very important. I do believe that this is a lifetime thing because, you know, we work with these great organizations and Kurt, you can play has been really inspiring because he's been also challenging concepts in sports and whatnot of just inclusivity over there. And he told me, this is an ongoing conversation that we need to revisit every month. We never know what's going to happen. We never know where things are going to go. And if we just sit on the success that we've had right now and the progress that we've done in the last 2 years, for example, at CLG, we'll be missing the mark in 6 months. And so that's the culture I'm trying to create at CLG, which is so hard, because I want retention of that culture. If people leave, I want to make sure that that culture is if I leave, I want to make sure that that culture stays. I want to make sure that people keep thinking about the next steps and not just, oh, we've been doing that for a year and it was really successful then. And women loved it, you know, so we should continue doing that. No, that's not how it works. And and that's really scary because we did a big culture shift, but it's so fragile. It's so fragile, and you could lose it if the right people leave or the wrong people leave, depending on how you see it. That culture is gone.
And that's a really good point because, you know, there's going to be turnover at any organization. And I think, you know, for me, I always hope that whenever I leave a room, a conversation, a job, whatever it is, that there's been some sort of impression that I can leave that carries over. And it sounds like what you are doing, I'm completely confident is having that effect, because it's really just a matter of getting people to think differently and to always be considering different perspectives, different conversations, different organizations. And I think, you know, in the past, kind of following a formula has been kind of the tried and true for, especially considering that esports is still incredibly new. But now we're realizing that, like, no, like, we don't have to follow a traditional sports model. Like, we are not traditional sports. We are not a traditional sports audience. We are a very unique, inclusive, diverse community in gaming. And this is the perfect place to show others how to do it right. Like, let's set the example that other organizations start to follow. And I think that just continuing to have that influence internally is going to have a ripple effect. So I would feel confident in that.
That's the goal. But you know, exactly what you said. I'm still scared, and I'm still working on keeping that culture. And hopefully, you know, because we have young people in the company. We've signed people that are 15, 16, 17.
Wow.
And having discussions with these people that are professional gamers that never went the traditional job path, who don't have experience like McDonald's or whatever, right? That forged a youth like when I was young. These kind of, they're skipping those. So they're straight up working with huge salaries, and you want to make sure that they can still develop themselves as humans, as people, and that they can get to learn about themselves and whatnot. And I feel that responsibility. I feel that responsibility to offer them with soft skills trainings, which is something that I've never had in esports, right? About learning about empathy, sympathy, about things that are not just like, well, you know, we talk a lot in esports about, oh, they need to learn how to do, you know, basic things like cook for themselves, laundry. Yeah, this is all great. But what about their personality? What about their mental health? What about, well, mental health is something that we talk more about, but what also about developing their sense of self, which I think is often overlooked. And I'm grateful we have that luxury at CLG to be in a station where I can create soft skills training with the help of Madison Square Garden, because that's what they do with their regular employees, and adapt it to regular CLG employees or players, staff, and whatnot, and make sure that it's relevant for a 17 years old, or for me, that's 35, in the company, and that they gain something out of sitting in front of their PC for like an extra 30 minutes a day to take on this soft skills training. And if they don't want to, they don't want to, but at least it's there if they do.
Yeah, it's an option. And I think too, you're such a great probably example for those, you know, young people coming in, because you've been through this, you know, like you've been a pro player for almost 20 years, which is still mind-blowing.
I would think
to me,
so,
you know?
but you know, when I wasn't making thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars at 17, so you would think so, but they also think they're doing great things.
Right.
And
I
then they
mean,
don't think that I'm out of touch, you know?
don't they know you paved the way? Like, I think, oh God, we're old. We're getting old because I'm like, don't they know like who they're talking to?
Honestly, I feel that gaming is has very short memories,
Yeah.
and if it wasn't, yeah, gaming has a short memory. You can forget about a scandal within 2 days, and you can
Yeah.
like feel that you're irrelevant within a month. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, with that, for people listening who are interested in bringing these, this intention of having a more inclusive work environment, creating programs around kind of the initiatives that you're doing in your position to their organizations, like what advice would you maybe give to help them advocate for that
yeah.
internally?
Accepting that you don't know, I think is huge. Like one thing that was a big game changer for me, it was really the George Floyd murder, right? I
Mhm.
used to say incident, now I
Mhm.
say murder. Is that the I knew, but I didn't knew. No. And then that's when I talk about the women in gaming issues, when I talk especially to men, it feels like they know but they don't know. They
Right.
will never know because they're not a
Mhm.
woman. And even if I try to explain it as much as I can, they will always struggle with not being able to fully understand and relate.
Mhm.
Um and I feel that when the George Floyd murder happened, I felt very vulnerable. I felt like I don't know, I didn't know, or I didn't know, I didn't know. And then also, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I feel super out of place.
Yeah.
I feel that it's not my place to do anything. I'm white, and that I'm gonna let my colleagues who are people of color talk.
Mhm.
And that was wrong. Well, that was wrong. That was a learning experience for me. Um, and together as a company, we decided we didn't know and we wanted to be there and do something and learn and keep learning and keep learning. So I would say that understanding that you probably don't know about most of the issues
Mhm.
that your company have. You probably don't understand what does it mean to be changing your culture until you're in it, and even then it's going to keep hitting you in the balls.
Mhm. Mhm.
um you're gonna discover new ways to feel more exclusive all the time.
Mhm.
You're gonna eventually think inclusivity is the most important thing. Then you're gonna realize that it might be equality, and then you're gonna realize that it might be equity, and then you realize that actually all of them might be wrong in specific instances because some people they might not want to be treated differently or they might
Mhm.
not want equality. They might get insulted. So you're going to realize that there's no right way and there's no wrong way, and the best way is to try. And so sitting down and we created a committee, a DNI committee that is, so MSG has their own DNI committee, but we created our own, and we pretty much just talk and ask ourselves questions and how can we get better, and we open the floor to everything. And then throughout the last 2 years there was issues that rose up about anti-Asian aid. We have a lot of Asians in the company. There was issues that happened more recently with Latino, Latinx, Native American, First Nation in Canada, especially. There was LGBTQ plus and transgender people.
Mhm.
Um, Things that happened recently that affected directly some of our players and whatnot. And we might not have been ready when the George Floyd murder happened, and we were not there for our people of color in the company. And we didn't want to miss that boat again and not be there for the next time.
Mhm.
And even though sometimes we're getting caught by surprise by what happens and by our blindness to certain issues and certain things, I think that we at least have something in place to open the floor and talk about it and do something more
Mhm.
rapidly, or educate ourselves more rapidly, or send out resources to the whole organization when something happens, because we have a tiny structure in
Mhm.
place and we have people that care and that will push for things and share documents and make sure that no holidays that is important to us is forgotten. I know that might be like a simple thing, but
Mhm.
having a calendar around the year to have, hey, this holiday is really important for our organization. For example, Women's Month in March is huge for us, and we want to think about it almost like a 365-day approach, not just when it's Women's Month, right? And not just have that conversation on International Women's Day on March 8th and be like, yay, it's Women's Day, happy celebration to everyone, we love women, and like check, right? So what does that mean for us? That means we need to have stuff in place all year long so that when we hit that day, we can, instead of saying, yo, this is today, we're doing something cool, and say, look what we've done in the past and look where we're heading now, and we're going to keep fighting for women. And do that for all of the important holidays, pretty much. Like, if you have no idea where to start, look at an American calendar and all of these. And I say American, and then at the same time, I'm telling myself there's not just American holidays, but like, if you're if you're a North American company, Canadian, wherever you are, take a look at that calendar and start with that. That's a very simple task, very concrete Excel sheet, all the dates, priorities, what I like, what we care about, and then get to know these holidays and get educated and figure out why it matters. For example, like Juneteenth, 2 years ago, that's when we started being super involved in Juneteenth. What does it mean? Like, what can we do? How can you incorporate Juneteenth in whatever you're doing that day? So it's not just a Juneteenth special, but if you're doing a tournament, you have video playing about Juneteenth, and you can educate your casters, your people on screen, players playing in the tournament about what Juneteenth is, and so that after your tournaments, you're gonna have people who are gonna be super happy they played in your tournament, but on top of it, they'll know about Juneteenth.
Yeah, we just need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and just opening the conversation to have a perspective where the intention is to learn, not to get it right, but to learn. And I think that if that starts from like the top down in any organization, it also starts internally from a self, from a human to human, connection. I think that would just help so many people just have a new perspective, learn something new, and be able to actually be part of the solution by accepting knowledge instead of trying to figure it all out. That's just my
and
take.
Also there's not one right answer too, right? Like what you said, everybody's different. There's some during the BLM movement, there's different point of views too. Some people want allies, some people want people to do something, some people just want to be listened to, some, like you said, some people just want you to learn and shut up and learn and give me my time. So it's the only way to know what people want, especially in your organization and in your staff, is to talk about it. We actually have one player who does not really want to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about his ethnicities, and that's awesome. We didn't know that at first. Our really clumsy approach was to, hey, do you want to be on a panel about this type of day?
Right.
This is your ethnicity. We're looking for someone, and no, I don't want to talk about this. I don't feel that way. And we were actually surprised.
Right.
And it was a lack of, well, not necessarily a lack of empathy, but it was a really interesting conversation to have, which is something now, just to tie the loop, which is something now that we have in our onboarding process. How comfortable are you talking about issues like straight from the get-go? You join CLG and we'll ask you, how comfortable are you talking about your personal life or about being on camera, and really like about just gaming in general, more personal topics. Like, we ask people to describe how they feel, because we don't want to disrespect them. We don't want to put them in a situation where they'll be upset, or they'll think we didn't consider their feelings by just asking them to be on a podcast.
Wait, but I think that also, it kind of goes back to my earlier point, where instead of saying, hey, you who fits this box, like, do you want to be part of this thing for this thing? It's like, hey, everyone, let us know what it is that you want, like, kind of just shifts it. Because I think it's like again, it's kind of like, instead of saying, hey, like, this fills all my boxes, let me go to this person, it's like, hey, like, is this even something that you want to do? And I think if instead of trying to like fill a solution, we kind of open ourselves up to other people's perspectives and consideration, then I think a lot of, we'll just learn a lot more along the way. So I'm really excited for that for you. And it sounds like you're doing great things and making a really big impact. And it's going to take someone, it's going to take more people like you in these positions who are willing to learn and make mistakes and get better as you go. Because it's to kind of our earlier point, like it's going to take it's a lifetime of knowledge that, we're not going to get it right every time. And that's okay.
No. There's this slap in the face happens almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
When you try to be inclusive, you fail all the time. On our boarding forums, we wanted to know, very quickly pronouns now. And someone wrote gender instead of pronouns. Mm. And had a drop box instead of an open field. And, we were trying to be inclusive. We actually had the opposite effect. We restricted it to, I don't know, 6 gender. And then we talked with like, and we had like maybe an other, I don't know. And then we talked with, you can play, for example, and you write pronouns and you leave the field open. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same mm-hmm. Outcome. You want to know if you need to say she, her, mm-hmm. And you actually don't really care about their gender. Right. You just wanted to know how to address them and to respect them. Mm-hmm. And the drop box, the word gender and the drop box is 2 things that is not what you're looking for. You want an open field and to know how to address them. So like by being more inclusive, we actually were less inclusive. Yeah. So, you try, you fail, you try again. And, mm-hmm. and I mean, the turnaround was really quick. It was like within a couple of days, but it's you got to fail to move on.
Well, it's just going to continue to make us all more intelligent people because you're learning so much every day. And that's what you want to do. So,
yeah.
Well, tell me.
But all of that is behind the scene. All of that is in it. When you say it's awesome, the hard work you do, and I'm like, yeah, but nobody knows about it. Yeah. This is very like a self, you got to pat yourself on the back because no one else will.
No, exactly. It's funny. I had a similar conversation where it's like, people only see the outcome. No one sees the hundreds, thousands of hours that were spent to make things happen or to go into like these conversations, but it does make an impact, so long those like end results continue to move the needle and to, have that more inclusive mindset, you're going to see positive change. So keep fighting the good fight. Tell me more about, help me if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Eleve. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Awesome. Tell me more about this, because this is something that's just yours, right?
Yeah. It's my baby. It's something that I started because, as we were talking, I think that I'm always pushing in my thoughts and my reflection and my vision. And throughout, unfortunately, we didn't have much Pyrenees when we started. So I still to this day feel that my progression, my learning has been through trials and error. And I wish I had mentors and whatnot, but it wasn't the case. So it's been a very slow process. And so for so long, a lot of my interviews and my media appearances, when I was asked questions, this is probably the most in-depth interview I've ever had, by the way, but usually it can be more about how does it feel like to be a woman, what kind of things you get told, is good toxic, like is gaming toxic, and that's like even like in the more recent year before it was like, when are you gonna get a good real job, so kind of evolved. But I'm someone that doesn't like to repeat myself, that that's really stubborn about always trying to learn and push myself. So I learn every time I meet someone. I learn every time I do an interview. I learn every time I make a conference, a keynote. Like I always try to keep it fresh and push the boundaries of what I'm trying to talk about. Because I think listening to myself, I'm like, yeah, I already know that. I've been telling that for 5 years. So I try to challenge myself to say, what is something that I don't even know that people at home wouldn't know? So a couple of years ago, I started working on a conference, a keynote. It was for Games for Change. And I wanted to address, obviously, toxicity in gaming. And I wanted to take out the word toxicity from gaming. And I'm doing a very deep backstory. I'm sorry. I'm like going to Rome to try to go to Toronto from Quebec. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but so um, I, because for me, I've always said that I don't think that gaming equals toxic or toxic
Right.
equal gaming. I think it's just an unfortunate thing that games are online and in our world is toxic online. So anyway, I started having this reflection about how it's not just the problems that we associate to gaming, whether it's toxicity, whether it's uh, malnourishment, whether it's sleeping habits, whether it's a dependence, all of these kind of things, I think can be extracted to our online interactions. And I actually think that everything that we take that is bad about gaming is just online, and the rest of gaming would be extraordinary, and we would see only the great. We would see only what the research shows is that gamers are smart, clever, learning enthusiasts, hard worker, like hire gamers pretty much in your company because they're going to be killing it at their position. So if we extract that, so for me, it is the internet and online and digital that was the problem. So I tried to kind of think about it, and in my own way, I kind of discovered my version of what cyber citizenship is. And it's a term that I didn't even know existed. And now I think it's coming from different spots around the world where people are talking about cyber citizenship. But for me, it was when I kind of discovered it. I made all the links in my brain, and I'm like, hey, we are awful citizens online, but there's a reason for it. We have absolutely zero education when it comes to our cyber citizenship. We have absolutely zero resource in life to make us better citizen online. And not only that, we don't even have our parents to educate us because they did not have cyber lives before. So we are, when it comes to being citizen and full fleshed out contributor of society, we mastered that. We had so much tools and systems, from religion to obviously laws, the government, like the police, all of our infrastructure, education is so that when we reach 18, we become independent contributor and positive contributors to society. That's why there's all the systems around us. And that was throughout thousands of years. And then entered the internet. And it's been around for 20 years, and it's the far west. It's a modern life with a technology that has absolutely zero support. So for its citizen. So at that point, it was kind of like a bulb within my community, my close community. So my parents, my agents and whatnot, and we were like, this is it. This is what you need to be talking about. We need to push that. And then Elevate became this for me. Elevate for me, it's how do we elevate our conversation to talk about cyber citizenship in a way that, yes, we want to talk about the arms that digital citizenship and cyber citizenship can cause, but also what can we do to be better cyber citizen? What can we do to support? I call them the Harvey 3 C's. So that's my pop quiz.
Love it.
Harvey, 4 C's now, I would say, but cyber dependence, cyber security, cyber bullying, and then cyber wellness. So for me, cyber citizenship has like 4 pillars that we need to get educated on, like 5, 6 years old, to be equipped to face the challenges that life, the curveball of life is going to throw us. Just the same way as if you get punched in the face in school, you have your teacher, your parents giving you advice, you have rules, don't punch your people, blah, blah, blah. You get punched online right now. What is there? Nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. If you fall from a building, you are not wearing a seatbelt and you're not wearing anything, and you just crash, and your mental health suffer out of it. And it can be your body as well that suffers out of it. Your from your posture to your highs, your dryness and whatnot. And that has nothing to do with gaming in a way, because you extract gaming. Tomorrow, there's no more gaming. We still have all of these issues,
right?
Every single one of them. Like I said, for me, gaming is a positive layer. So going back to our main topic, why I made Elevate is for to educate these people, whether it's by launching the clothing line that we launched, so that every single piece represents and have a conversation about cyber citizenship. So from gaming myths to I call them conversation pieces, because that's the keys. Like, you see something, for example, I should have been wearing Elevate right now, but I have one shirt that's a pew pew and flower. And so for me, it's like, actually pew pews, which are linked to video games, is not a violent thing. It has nothing to do with violence, and it doesn't make you a more violent person. And it's been proven, it's a fact. So that's why I made flowers around it, just to kind of have a conversation about these kind of things, so that if you're wearing it, there's a little bit of a meaning behind it that makes sense to you. And also you can start that conversation, even if it's your fans, family, and whatnot. Hey, did you know I'm wearing this because didn't you know actually that video games don't cause more violence? Right. Actually, for most of the time, they allow you to express anger in a positive and healthy way, and it's proven. And if you want to check out the research, I bought this on Elevate, and Elevate has all the links for it right underneath the shirt. So
that's awesome.
But it's a work in progress, like everything in life. We started the company recently, and we'll be pushing to add more stuff very soon.
I mean, that's what an incredible mission. And I think that's something, I mean, that's a big task to undertake, you know?
Let me just tackle cyber citizenship for you.
But I think it's I mean, the fact that you've like put together these resources, you have, your reach and your leadership, that you're able to, get it out there. So I think that's incredible. Well, Stephanie, to wrap us up, why don't you let people know what your next move is? I mean, you have so much going on, so let us know what your next move is and where everyone can find you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot happening. Let's just say 2021 is not over, and 2022 is I'm already planning up until May at this point already. Wow. So it's a little chaotic, but moves that I can talk about right now is working on books. I have an English one, and I also have a French one. They're not necessarily the same topic at all. It's not just a translation. They're completely different pieces. And the French one should come out early this 2022. We're right in the midst of writing it. So we have a deadline. So it's happening no matter what. I have a contract signing and whatnot. So this is a really big deal for me, kind of a dream. And we'll see what that goes. More Leve stuff, more CLG stuff, and just overall working a lot.
Wonderful. Well, keep it up, because I'm so excited. I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to connect. You do so much more than I even realized. Like, I knew you had a lot on your plate, but really having the opportunity to talk to you about everything that seems to be processing in your mind at any one time, I think is just incredible. So I'm really excited for the future, and hope we get to stay in touch. So best of luck to you.
Yeah. Thank you. You're a great listener. I talk a lot, and you let me finish all of my thoughts. And you're a great listener.
Oh, no. Thank you so much. You're a great storyteller. I still have a smile on my face from this interview, because Stephanie's energy and positivity is so infectious, and I get excited to follow along in her journey as she continues to create positive change in esports. My biggest takeaway from our conversation, though, is that Stephanie is a lifelong learner. She is consistently and proactively taking on new challenges and responsibilities that a lot of people would shy away from. And she isn't afraid to make mistakes along the way, and is constantly evolving her perspectives. And that's such a valuable quality for any move maker. And I hope those of you who are listening are able to go about your day taking time to listen and consider new perspectives from your peers. I want to thank Ms. Harvey again for her time and sharing her story with all of us. Now get out there and make your move.